an extraordinary ability for one who perhaps had a background that was much more difficult than we realised. So therefore, the ability to always see positive and move forward must have been built into his psyche. It must have been an incredible challenge to have to deal with.
The Christmas tradition at Sandringham has survived wars, scandals, abdications, divorces, and years of private royal pain. But this time, the threat did not come from outside the palace gates. It came from within the family itself. Princess Anne saw the proposed changes, understood what they would mean, and objected with a force that turned a quiet royal discussion into a monarchy-wide crisis. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Anne did not rush when the file was placed before her. She turned the first page, then the second, and the air tightened. The Sandringham Christmas Protocol, the private royal plan that decides who arrives first, who walks where, who sits where, and who is allowed near the family, was changing in ways that reached beyond manners. This was not just about a meal. Sandringham Christmas mattered because the nation watched it as a promise of unity, and the family lived it as a reminder of rank, memory, and duty. The proposed changes altered seating order, arrival hierarchy, church walk positioning, and a new private guest approval system. To Anne, that was the line. She saw custom pushed behind preference, and the discipline built by Queen Elizabeth II felt as if it were being loosened. The senior aide noticed the moment her face changed. The aide had seen anger before, but this was colder, sharper, more dangerous. Anne stopped on one clause, held the page still, and circled a single line. Then she wrote one word beside it. No. She did not raise her voice. She did not ask who wanted it. She simply made the objection formal, and that silence hit harder than accusation. The Queen had spent decades using Christmas at Sandringham as a living message. The crown could suffer, argue, grieve, and still appear whole. Anne understood why that mattered. If the order changed without full agreement, the ritual would no longer protect the family from division. It would expose division itself. Charles felt the force before he finished reading her response. The king knew Anne was not objecting to kindness or change itself. She was objecting to power hidden inside festive language. He set the file down, then picked it up again, because every name inside now carried risk. Camilla would feel questioned. William would feel watchful. Catherine would feel pressure before Christmas began. And Charles understood the danger. Once tradition looked negotiable, loyalty would be tested in public. But Anne's objection was only the first tremor, because once the file reached Charles, every person named inside it suddenly had something to lose. Behind every royal protocol is a human wound. A chair is never just a chair. A doorway is never just a doorway. A walk to church is never just a walk. At Sandringham, every placement tells the world who matters, who is protected, who has been forgiven, and who has been quietly moved aside. This was why Anne's objection struck so deeply. Charles wanted the changes to look calm, almost merciful, as if the Christmas gathering could be modernized without reopening old scars. The Sandringham Christmas Order, the private structure deciding arrivals, seating, church positioning, and family visibility during the royal holiday mattered because it showed the nation whether the crown still understood itself. It also mattered because every adjustment touched memory. Camilla saw the same order as a test of recognition, and she believed her household had spent too long standing at the edge of royal acceptance. To her, inclusion felt overdue. To Anne, it felt dangerous. The princess did not see kindness in the draft. She saw inherited discipline being softened until it could no longer hold the family together. Charles thought he was reducing tension, but Anne feared he was only moving the tension into the heart of Christmas itself. William studied the draft in private and felt the room around him grow smaller. The prince knew the public-facing Christmas rituals, the parts of the holiday where the family's order is seen and judged by the country, were not harmless details. They shaped how Catherine and the children appeared beside the crown, and that made the changes personal. Catherine noticed his silence at breakfast before he said a word. She watched him fold the paper once, too carefully, and asked what had happened. William did not answer immediately. Then he looked at her and said, "Anne has stopped it." Catherine understood at once. This was not only about Camilla, not only about seating, not only about one holiday. It was about whether the next generation would inherit a monarchy guided by duty or one file, constantly rearranged to soothe private pain. Charles set the file down when the meaning finally reached him. The king realized Anne's objection did not merely challenge a proposal. It challenged his judgment as monarch. Camilla would hear rejection in it, even if Anne called it duty. William would read warning in it, even if Charles called it reform. Catherine would feel the pressure of it, because her children's place in the family story had quietly entered the dispute. And Anne, still unshaken, had forced everyone to face the truth hiding beneath the festive language. Christmas had become a battleground for the monarchy's future, and to understand why she reacted so sharply, the family had to look back to the one Christmas moment that changed everything. Every palace crisis has a hidden beginning. Sometimes it is not a document, not a public statement, not a grand argument. Sometimes it is one small moment that everyone witnesses and no one dares to name. For Sandringham, that moment came on Christmas Eve, when a quiet change in the family order left Princess Anne certain that something sacred was being tested. Anne remembered the night, because nothing about it felt accidental. The Christmas Eve seating incident, a private dinner placement change, where name cards were shifted at the last minute, moved her farther from Charles, while giving Camilla, as preferred guests, a place closer to the king. That mattered, because Christmas seating inside the royal family is never only about comfort. It quietly tells the household who carries influence, who stands nearest the monarch, and who may one day shape the public order seen outside. Anne understood the second danger as well. When a private change succeeds without resistance, it becomes easier to repeat it later as tradition. Camilla believed the change showed overdue recognition for those closest to her. The queen consort saw acceptance where Anne saw warning. William noticed the pause before anyone else spoke. The prince watched Anne look at the changed name cards, then looked toward Charles, waiting for the king to correct what had happened. Charles looked uncomfortable. He knew the shift would be noticed, but he said nothing, and that silence struck Anne harder than a direct refusal. William understood the damage in that quiet moment, because the future king knew how family arrangements could become public signals. Camilla tried to carry the evening as if nothing had fractured, but she felt Anne's restraint across the room. The queen consort did not need an argument to know she was being judged. Charles did not need a confrontation to know his sister had marked the moment. Anne spoke only after dinner, when the pressure had already settled into her bones. In a documented account later shared with a senior aide, she said that if Sandringham customs could be changed without warning, the next change would come dressed as family harmony. The aide repeated the words in a private briefing, and the phrase hardened into a warning no one could erase. Anne was not protecting a chair. She was protecting a code. Charles had wanted peace, but peace without order had begun to look like surrender. Camilla wanted belonging, but belonging forced through quiet rearrangement had begun to feel like conquest. William carried that memory into the new protocol crisis, knowing the past had finally returned. So when the family gathered behind closed doors, Anne did not arrive to negotiate. She arrived to stop the line from being crossed again. The most dangerous royal confrontations rarely begin with shouting. They begin with stillness, a closed door, a cleared table, a file placed between blood relatives like evidence in a trial. When Princess Anne entered the private room at Sandringham, Charles knew this was not a routine discussion. William knew it too. Camilla knew it most of all. Anne took her place without softening her face, and the silence around the table became its own accusation. The proposed Christmas protocol, the written plan controlling royal arrivals, church walk order, Christmas lunch seating, and private household permissions mattered, because it shaped how the family appeared united before the nation and how power moved quietly, behind closed doors. Charles wanted the meeting to steady the room before the dispute escaped it. The king believed the changes could ease old tension, especially around Camilla, who felt her place in the family had always been tested in public and questioned in private. But Anne saw something different. She saw Sandringham Christmas being pulled away from inherited duty and pushed toward personal comfort. Catherine listened carefully, because the moment the file mentioned the children, the issue stopped being distant and became painfully close. William did not speak at first, and that restraint made the room more dangerous. The prince watched one of the senior aides open the file to the section on arrival order. Then another aide pointed to the line on church walk formation. Those aides understood the risk. The walk to church was not just a family custom, but a public signal of rank, closeness, and royal continuity. Anne looked directly at Charles and said the changes would turn Sandringham from a royal tradition into a personal accommodation. Charles held her gaze, wounded by the words, because he heard more than disagreement. He heard judgment. Camilla reacted with visible hurt, and the queen consort argued that the family could not keep living inside the rules of the past when the present had changed. Anne did not flinch. She answered that the present had changed, but the crown could not survive if every wound was treated by moving the boundaries of duty. Catherine felt William shift beside her when the children's place in the Christmas walk was mentioned. The future king leaned forward and asked who had approved that line. One aide lowered his eyes. The other admitted the draft had been circulated before every senior royal had been personally consulted, and that admission landed like a crack through the table. Camilla went still, knowing the mistake had made her wishes look like pressure. Charles set his hand on the file but did not close it. Anne did. With one controlled movement, she shut the pages and told the king that if he signed this protocol, the monarchy would look divided before the nation even saw them. But the real battle was not only inside that room, because the question now became who actually had the power to force the decision through. In royal life, power does not always announce itself through crowns or speeches. Sometimes power sits inside a guest list, a seating chart, a walking order, or the right to decide who stands beside whom when the cameras appear. Sandringham's Christmas protocol looked ceremonial from the outside, but inside the palace, it had become a map of influence. Charles read the briefing note alone, and the weight of it settled deeper with every line. The Sandringham Christmas protocol, the written family plan for arrivals, seating, church appearances, and private access during the royal holiday, mattered because it shaped the nation's image of unity and protected the hidden order inside the family. The king held final authority as monarch, meaning he had the last power to approve or reject the changes. But even he knew Sandringham carried the shadow of Queen Elizabeth II. Her customs still lived there. Her discipline still ruled the rooms. That was why the proposed changes had become so dangerous. Charles wanted to protect Camilla's dignity, but he also knew Anne was not speaking from pride. She represented continuity, restraint, and the old royal code that had kept private wounds from becoming public collapse. Camilla sat quietly, after being told the file might be paused, and the silence around her felt like rejection. The queen consort had believed the proposal would finally recognize her household without an apology. But Anne's objection made those wishes look like disruption instead of inclusion. Charles pressed his thumb against the margin of the briefing note, torn between the woman beside him and the system behind him. The king understood why Camilla felt exposed. She had spent years proving she could stand near the crown without shaking it. Yet Anne's warning forced him to ask a harder question. If Christmas order could be changed to soothe one side of the family, what would stop every future hurt from demanding its own adjustment? Anne saw the true danger when a palace secretary revealed, in a documented internal briefing, that one clause would allow a smaller internal group to approve Christmas guests without the wider family review she expected. That clause changed everything. Private household permissions, the quiet rules deciding which relatives, aides, and personal guests may enter family spaces, mattered because access controls atmosphere, optics, and memory. Anne understood that whoever controlled the guest list could quietly reshape Sandringham from within. She did not need to accuse anyone loudly. Her judgment was sharper because it was controlled. Charles now faced the choice he had tried to avoid: back the proposal, amend it, or allow Anne's objection to reshape the monarchy's most watched family ritual. And while he hesitated, The first consequences were already moving through Sandringham like the cold air under a locked door. The palace tried to keep the matter contained, but contained emotions have a way of escaping through the smallest cracks. One aide's changed schedule, one delayed invitation, one unanswered call. By the next morning, everyone close to Sandringham understood that Christmas had changed before a single car had arrived at the estate. Charles ordered a pause, and the pause spoke louder than approval ever could. The proposed changes were temporarily frozen while he reviewed Anne's objection, leaving the family trapped between two versions of Christmas. The Christmas schedule, the working plan that controls arrivals, meals, church appearances, guest movements, and private family timing, suddenly became the most dangerous paper in the house. It mattered, because every person needed to know where to stand before the nation watched them, and it mattered because uncertainty inside a royal holiday quickly becomes suspicion. Courtiers began preparing two drafts in silence. One followed the new proposal. The other preserved the traditional order Anne had defended. Charles knew the choice would not stay private for long, because every delayed invitation hinted that the king himself no longer trusted the plan he had been expected to sign. Camilla received the message without argument, but the stillness around her carried pain. The queen consort learned that the revised seating plan was on hold, and disbelief moved into wounded frustration before she spoke. To her, the freeze felt personal, as if Anne's objection had turned a request for recognition into proof of overreach. Camilla had wanted belonging, not humiliation. Yet the queen consort could feel how quickly the language had shifted around her. Inclusion had become influence. Comfort had become control. Charles understood that wound, and the king suffered because protecting her dignity now seemed to collide with protecting the family order. Anne had made the issue impossible to soften. She had forced him to look beneath the polite words and see what the document truly carried. Catherine felt the tension through William before anyone explained the full damage. The prince chose every word carefully, and that restraint frightened her more than anger would have. Their children were now part of the protocol dispute, and the public Christmas appearance, the moment when the family walks together and presents unity to the country, could no longer be treated as harmless tradition. A private note from Anne then sharpened the crisis. In a documented message delivered through a senior aide, she stated that no Christmas arrangement should change until every senior royal accepted the implications in writing. Charles read that line and understood the trap had closed. Anne had forced honesty where the palace had hoped for quiet adjustment, and the freeze created a deeper problem. Someone must now speak privately, without aides, without files, and without the protection of royal machinery. That conversation finally comes when two members of the family step away from protocol and face the pain beneath it. After the confrontations, the files, the pauses, and the guarded statements, the turning point does not come in a formal meeting. It comes in a private room, with no aides taking notes and no courtiers standing near the door. Charles and Anne sit across from each other, not as monarch and princess, but as siblings, carrying the same inheritance differently. Charles asked for the conversation, because the silence had become heavier than the argument. He wanted Anne away from Camilla, away from William, away from Catherine, and away from advisors who had turned one Christmas decision into a test of power. The advisors mattered because they had begun speaking in process instead of pain, and that had made the family sound like an institution fighting itself. The crown, the living symbol of royal duty, authority, and public trust, mattered here because Charles knew every private choice could weaken or strengthen what the nation believed about him. Anne agreed to speak, but she made one thing clear before she sat down. She would not soften the truth just to make the room feel kinder. Charles heard that warning, and the king knew this was no longer about winning. Anne looked at him not with anger, but with the harder force of disappointment. Charles admitted he had wanted Christmas to feel less divided, as if a careful adjustment could ease old wounds before they became visible. The king spoke of peace, of belonging, of trying to make the season gentler for everyone. Anne let him finish. Then she answered that unity built by erasing structure was not unity at all. It was surrender wearing a smile. Her voice softened only when she spoke of their mother. She reminded him that Queen Elizabeth II had protected Sandringham Christmas because it gave the family one day where duty came before personal hurt. That memory struck Charles deeply because he understood that Anne was not defending cold rules. She was defending the one rhythm that had kept the family from breaking in public. Charles finally said what he had avoided saying. The guest approval clause had gone too far. The king acknowledged that allowing a smaller circle to approve Christmas guests risked making the monarchy look negotiable, as if access to family spaces could be reshaped by pressure instead of principle. Anne did not celebrate. She did not smile. She simply placed the file back in front of him and told him to choose the crown before comfort. Charles left the room changed, carrying no easy victory and no simple peace. By evening, the palace prepared a response that would define how Britain understood the crisis. But before the palace could control the message, Britain had already found its own symbol for what had happened. Royal stories become national stories when the public sees itself inside them. This was not just about Sandringham, it was about tradition, change, loyalty, remarriage, inheritance, and whether the monarchy still knew how to protect its own meaning. By sunrise, the private objection had become a public drama, and one image captured the mood of the country. William watched the morning coverage without moving, and Catherine lowered the volume before the words could fill the room. The palace statement, a public message released to control how a royal issue is understood, said, Christmas arrangements remained under review, and established traditions would be respected. That mattered, because those calm words admitted more than they hid. They told Britain that Anne had forced a pause at the highest level, and they told the family that the original draft could no longer move quietly through the palace. Catherine understood why the public cared. The children's Christmas appearance was not just routine, it was the visible promise of continuity. William understood it too, and the prince said nothing. Camilla saw the newspaper spread later, and the phrase cut deeper than any private rebuke. One front page showed Anne walking behind Charles at a past Christmas service, with the headline, Anne Draws the Line. Another column, called The Dispute, a struggle over the soul of Sandringham, and the Queen Consort felt the words land like judgment. She had wanted recognition, not a national debate over whether her household had pushed too far. Charles read the same coverage with a tight expression, because the king knew the country had chosen its symbol. Anne was no longer just the sister who objected. She had become the guardian of a Christmas order many people associated with Queen Elizabeth, whose habits still shaped what Britain expected. Outside St. Mary Magdalene Church, a small crowd gathered near the Sandringham gates, phones raised, voices low, waiting for meaning in every detail. The church mattered, because the Christmas walk there had become one of the monarchy's clearest public rituals, a simple family appearance, loaded with rank, forgiveness, and unity. Broadcasters framed the story as tradition fighting back, and that phrase traveled fast. Charles understood the danger. Camilla felt exposed by it. William and Catherine felt the pressure of it. Anne, inside the storm she had created, remained steady, because the reaction proved what she had warned all along. Once Britain saw her as the line protecting Christmas tradition, the monarchy could not return to the original draft without looking divided and weak. And so the final decision arrives not as a victory speech, but as a verdict on what the royal family still owes to itself. In the end, the Sandringham Christmas Protocol was not saved by ceremony. It was saved by resistance. Princess Anne did not object because she feared change. She objected because she recognized the difference between change that strengthens the monarchy and change that quietly hollows it out. Her stand forced the family to confront what tradition still means when comfort, image, and power collide. Charles made the decision with the heaviness of a man who understood the price. The revised guest approval system was withdrawn, and the altered Christmas Day hierarchy was removed before it could become a permanent wound. The Sandringham Christmas Protocol, the written order that controls arrivals, seating, church appearances, and private guest access during the royal holiday, mattered because it protected more than tradition. It protected the public image of unity and the private balance of duty inside the family. A smaller set of adjustments remained, but the core Christmas order survived, still carrying the structure shaped by Queen Elizabeth II. Charles knew Camilla would feel the loss of recognition. The king also knew Anne had forced him to see that leadership sometimes means disappointing those closest to him in order to protect something larger than personal comfort. Anne received the final version in silence, and there was no triumph in the way she set it down. She had won the argument, but victory inside a family never feels clean when the cost is pain. Camilla accepted the outcome, yet the queen consort carried the emotional distance left behind by the dispute. She had wanted belonging, but the argument had made her wishes look like pressure, and that wound would not vanish simply because Christmas was preserved. Anne understood that too. She did not mistake restraint for peace. She knew Sandringham would still feel bruised, because some decisions saved the crown while leaving the people inside it shaken. William and Catherine privately recognized what Anne had done, and the future king understood the warning more clearly than anyone. The princess saw it too. Monarchy survives only when family feeling does not overpower public duty. This moment meant Anne had become the line the monarchy could not cross. She did not destroy Christmas at Sandringham. She preserved its meaning. The crown emerged bruised but steadier. Charles emerged chastened but clearer. Camilla emerged wounded but aware. William and Catherine emerged watchful, knowing the next generation would inherit not just titles, but tests of courage. There is no unresolved ending here. Princess Anne objected. Charles listened. The most dangerous changes were stopped, and Sandringham Christmas remained what it had always been, not merely a family gathering, but a test of whether the monarchy still remembered itself. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.